Due to ShowPro's aggressive copyright takedown policy, this re-upload will be audio only, with the fully edited version available to my patrons, link in the description below. I recently added my old copy of the Pokemon To Be a Master soundtrack to the lineup of CDs I listen to in my car, and it holds up surprisingly well. Yes, the tracks are very dated and cheesy, but that's part of their appeal. It's the purest distillation of nostalgia that I own, and I love every part of it. Except for track 7, The Time Has Come, aka Pikachu's Goodbye. Even as a kid, I didn't like the episode that this song was attached to, and I would actively skip over it when watching it on VHS. Pretty much everything about the premise of this episode and the way it's executed makes me angry at how contrived it is. To understand why this episode fails so horribly, let's take a look at some of the other goodbyes throughout Ash's career as a Pokemon trainer, starting with the first one, Butterfree. Butterfree's departure from Ash's team is entirely justified in pretty much all areas. After Butterfree finds a mate and wins her affection by saving her and the other Butterfree from the clutches of Team Rocket, Ash recognizes that Butterfree has discovered a new passion in life, and that if he were to keep Butterfree with him and force Butterfree to leave his new mate behind, it would only make his friend unhappy. Yes, leaving Ash would also make him unhappy, but in the end it comes down to what Butterfree wants the most, which it turns out is to mate and spend his life with his new partner, which the show presents as the natural thing for Butterfree to do. This is also the first time Ash has had to say goodbye to a close friend, a Pokemon that he raised since it was just a little Caterpie. But now that Caterpie's all grown up and has to chase after its own dreams, and so Ash makes the tough decision to let Butterfree go in one of the most emotional finales to an episode that the series has ever produced. Next comes Primeape, whom Ash parts with after the P1 Grand Prix. From their very first encounter several episodes earlier up until the climactic fight of this episode, Primeape has felt nothing but disdain and hatred for Ash since he's such a naturally rage-filled Pokemon whom Ash managed to piss off quite extensively before capturing him. This made him basically useless to Ash in terms of Pokemon battles for most of their time together, since he would probably never follow Ash's instructions even if Ash did try to use him. And the P1 Grand Prix is really the only time that Primeape was ever useful at all. After Ash demonstrated that he truly cared for Primeape by saving him after he fell out of the ring, Primeape finally begins to trust Ash, allowing him to win the Grand Prix. Instead of this being the start of a new relationship, however, it ends up being the end of their journey together. Primeape and Ash realize that even though they finally got along in the end, they just didn't have the right chemistry to battle together. And it would be much better for Primeape in the long run to be surrounded by fighting Pokemon and professional fighting Pokemon trainers. It's not as rock solid as Butterfree's instance, but because Primeape didn't have nearly the same amount of screen presence as Butterfree, I can let it slide without too much fuss. Skipping forward a couple seasons, we arrive at another of the anime's big departures, Charizard. His circumstances are much like those of Primeape, though a bit more fleshed out and understandable. Charizard rarely ever listened to Ash ever since he evolved into a Charizard. Hell, even when he was a Charmeleon, he didn't listen all that well. However, after an entire day of Ash taking care of Charizard's injuries, Charizard grew to respect Ash as a trainer and now listens to his commands willingly. And they even go on to win the Orange Islands League together. And then they enter the Characific Valley, where they discover that Charizard really isn't the hot shit that they thought he was, and is woefully out of his league when it comes to being a powerful member of his own species. In this instance, both Ash and Charizard realize that Charizard simply won't reach his full potential, something that both of them desperately want, if they were to stay together. And so Ash decides to leave Charizard behind to train with the other Charizard who can actually provide a major challenge to his skill level. A mutual parting of ways, but still emotional nonetheless. With all that said, let's return to Pikachu's Goodbye. In this episode, Ash and friends stumble on a pack of wild Pikachu, and after saving one of their younger members, the pack opens up to Pikachu and allows him to interact with them. And then Ash acts like even more of an idiot than usual and scares them all off. Even by Ash's standards, this was pretty stupid, and it only served to instigate more conflict. Although Pikachu doesn't even seem that bothered that Ash acted like such an idiot, so really there's hardly a conflict at all. Later, Team Rocket shows up and tries to steal all of the Pikachu, but with the help of Ash's Pikachu, Team Rocket is thwarted once again. This, combined with a line that Brock said earlier about how it's beneficial for Pikachu to be able to interact with his own species, leads Ash to try and leave Pikachu behind because it's better for him that way? But it's not, though. There's nothing at all about this circumstance that would lead us to think that Pikachu would be better off without Ash. He's not missing out on propagating his species or losing his potential to be a stronger fighter. It's all one big misunderstanding meant to fuel a temporary moment of melodrama. And temporary is also key here because, as we all know, Pikachu doesn't leave and comes back to Ash in the end. A Pokemon leaving Ash's team is a big event because it marks a moment of growth for both Ash and those Pokemon, and symbolizes that even the closest of friends must eventually part ways when the circumstances demand it. A great lesson for young children to learn. Here it just feels like they're saying, gotcha, he's not leaving after all, and all it does is piss me off. Nothing changes or is learned here because Ash and Pikachu already had a super tight bond going into this episode and coming out of it. If the episode had been prefaced with a period of Ash and Pikachu experiencing a strain in their relationship, or if it had actually given Pikachu a legitimate reason to stay behind, then it might have at least felt like it was timed correctly. But as it stands, it's just pure half-baked melodrama. Normally, I'd go out of my way to defend a series being melodramatic, especially when it comes to a show about children growing up. But it doesn't even mean anything in this instance, and so it just comes off as annoying and vapid. I'm gonna be honest, this is probably my least favorite episode of Pokemon from the entire original series because it's completely pointless in the execution of its drama. Sure, it has some solid animation and good directing, but the story itself is fundamentally flawed to the point of it being unwatchable for me. And because I dislike it so much, I always end up skipping track 7 on that CD whenever it comes up. Ironically, when the song is played at the end of the Pokemon Heroes movie, it ends up fitting a lot better. At the end of the film, Latios passes away in order to save everyone, and we get a shockingly somber and deep final look through Latios' eyes as he passes on into the next world. When the track plays during the credits of the film, the lyrics fit really well when framed through the perspective of Latios' sister, Latias. The lines about always being together and a sudden parting of ways actually have some emotional weight to them when attached to the death of a loved one because A, the parting actually happens, and B, it echoes a legitimately emotional moment in the film. If only the TV series had managed to do that the first time. Special thanks to Jan Rogalski for supporting me on Patreon. If you'd like your name listed here as well and want to gain access to patron-exclusive content such as podcasts, Let's Plays, and a Discord server, check out the link in the description below. And if you enjoyed this video and want to see more, be sure to like, subscribe, and ring that little notification bell so you can stay up to date on all my latest content. Share this video around with people you think might be interested. Leave a comment below about what you thought and other topics you'd like me to cover in the future. Check out my written content over at Digital Fox Media, and don't forget to follow me on Facebook and Twitter. My name is Ember, and I'll see you next time.